One place you don't see much common sense these days is at the BBC, but the BBC is right now planning to cut dozens of jobs in local news journalism, actually stuff that people really rely on in their areas, deciding to spend, though, £80 million on a new diversity drive. Of course they are. They're planning to increase their representation targets for ethnicity, disability and socioeconomic diversity from 20% to 25% across all production roles, and improving off-air representation in senior production and leadership within production companies, as well as on-air diversity. Now, the only diversity they don't care about, of course, is diversity of views. Let's talk to Aaqil Ahmed, who's a former BBC executive. Good morning to you.
Morning.
Thanks so much for joining us. I mean, a lot of people really rely on local news. I mean, local newspapers are being driven out by the BBC website to a certain extent, but local reporters holding local councils to account really matters. Whether or not there is one or more blackface or someone in a wheelchair at the BBC makes sod all difference to anyone, does it?
Well, I've got to obviously say I'm speaking in a personal capacity. I think the two things are very separate, Julia. I think, obviously, I know we want to conflate them, and it's lovely to have a good
No, it's a choice about how you spend money.
No, but the two things are very separate. I mean, the fact of the matter is, and the BBC have been very clear about this for a number of years now, since they were asked to kind of like take on lots of kind of financial burdens that they never had before, that actually the budget is really tight. Now, we can all have a conversation.
The budget is not tight at the BBC. I'm sorry, I've been in the BBC enough times, and I've been in other TV stations.
I know what it's like, because people like me ended up losing our jobs because of course, restructuring, because ultimately we had to kind of like, there was a situation where the money isn't there.
No, this is such nonsense. Aaqil, the number of staff who work on any BBC project compared to how many we're working on in ITV or Sky or here or GB News is off the scale. They haven't got a budget problem.
Across broadcasting,
it's how they choose to spend it.
Across broadcasting, Julia, I think, and across broadcasting, everybody's struggling. I'm working on a project right now. The budget is the same as it was over 10 years ago. Over 10 years ago, it's the same budget. Now, the fact of the matter is, salaries, equipment hire, all of those things have gone up. Yeah, but the budget is the same.
But they still have they are massively overstaffing on virtually every project. I could go into the BBC and cut the number of staff by half, no impact on programming.
No, but we have to kind of acknowledge that there are problems with regards to the funding.
But it's about how...
I would agree with you. I'd agree with you. I don't think this is necessarily the best place to kind of like cut money back. I would agree with you on that. But I think you can't conflate it with this whole thing about This is also about kind of trying to get working class people from lower socioeconomic groups, etc. But it's also about programming as well. It's not about just people. It's about money. And this money already exists. It's not new money. It's just finding out where you want to spend that money. And actually, do you know what? If everybody has an opinion on that, and that's right. There are things that I think that are wasted in all broadcasters. I know that. I've been there in that. I've been in situations where you think to yourself, why are we spending money on this? We shouldn't be spending money on this. But we have to acknowledge that the BBC, the licence fee, this is showing is actually we have problems with the licence fee and whether or not it is deliverable with the services that we're asking.
No, I'm sorry, I don't even think that's up for discussion. It's easily deliverable. The BBC just spends a lot of money on stuff they don't need to spend money on. But also a lot of these targets, a lot of these, like the 20% or 25% representation, totally and utterly out. I mean, it's not a fair representation of the number of people in the country who are either ethnic minority or disabled or anything. It's a totally or gay or trans or queer or whatever they're calling themselves this week. It's not even representative of the number of people as a percentage of our population. It's just virtue signalling nonsense and giving people jobs because of the colour of their skin or their sexuality, not based on merit. I mean, that should go against everything.
It's interesting you chose those two but didn't choose lower socioeconomic groups or gender.
Because there aren't that many working class people working in the BBC.
Well, I was one of them, and actually the thing is, when you get lots of people from ethnic minority groups, generally, depending on which part of the country you're talking about, they could be from working class backgrounds as well.
They could be. But I don't think you should hire someone because they're working class. I don't think you should hire someone because they're black or because they're white or because they're a woman or a man or gay or straight. You should hire someone who's good at the job. If the BBC think all of the people doing the hiring are racist and sexist and homophobic, they should sack those people.
No, look, across broadcasting, there is an issue with regards to the percentages of people working in them from those groups, right? We know that anyway. And in terms of what the impact it has on the programming, it has that as well. The fact of the matter is, when you have people, significant proportions of people in various different locations who come from different groups, whatever that particular
then you should be represented. I don't feel the need to have white women talk to me. Aaqil, I don't feel the need for that, so I don't know why anyone else does. Look, we're going to have to go. We are literally out of time. Aaqil, thank you. This is Talk.